To learn more about this topic, let's call on stage the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Eon Inc., Mr. Junie Del Mundo.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. And I'm so proud to be here together with the best creative talents in the country. But today we are not here to celebrate our individual milestones, our individual accomplishments, and what I'm going to talk about is our collective. Because creativity is not just about solving problems, but it is also about how we collaborate and how we tell our stories. That's the major reason why I entitled my presentation today as Made in the Philippines, How Country Branding Will Boost Your Business. Now, so let us get started. I'm going to tell you an amazing story. I started my career as a diplomat. I was posted at the Philippine Embassy in Paris. Then one day, I got a call at the embassy. So the receptionist passed on a Frenchman, pero bago ipasa sa akin na receptionist yung call, sabi sa akin, Consul, hindi ko alam kung paano ko sasagutin ang katanungan noong French guy na tumatawag sa akin. And then, so the guy came on, and what he asked me was, Mr. Consul, how can you help me find a girlfriend from the Philippines? So just imagine the goal of calling the Philippine Embassy in Paris, asking on how he can find a girlfriend. But that was what the Philippine brand was all about. That's what we were known for at that particular point in time. We were known for prostitution, Smoky Mountain, crime, corruption. That's what we were known for. But fast forward 30 years after, nasa Paris uli ako, pero I was no longer a diplomat. Then I entered some of the most expensive boutiques para lamang makiusyoso. But then, when the salespeople found out that I was from the Philippines, immediately they came to me and said, oh, you know, we are going to the Philippines this summer. And I heard so many beautiful things about the Philippines. We heard about your beaches, we heard about your festivals, and we are even skipping Thailand because we are looking forward to visiting the virgin places that tourists are all talking about. So, you ask the question, paano tayo napunta dito sa katayuang ganyan? From stories about squalor, prostitution, and then now, people are talking about exploration. Dati exploitation ang pinag-uusapan. Ngayon, people are talking about exploration, exploring the Philippines and exploring our talents. This is because of a unified story about the Philippines. Di ba nakikita natin ngayon sa TikTok, sa YouTube, sa Instagram, you see a lot of foreigners blogging about their experiences about the Philippines. That is one of the reasons. And then, the best brand ambassador for the Philippines is the Filipino diaspora. Our overseas Filipinos who have been inviting their friends, family of their friends, boyfriends to come to the Philippines. And they tell stories about our country. And then, so just imagine, I am here to talk about how a strategic, compelling country brand can boost your business and reshape how the world sees us. Okay, so 2 decades ago, I founded Eon after I left the Philippine Foreign Service. Like most of you here, I am an entrepreneur. I started my company with 5 people. I didn't even know anything about accounting. Yung sinasabi ni Congressman Toff na magkumuha ka na resibo, hindi ko alam yang gawin nung una. No? But then, coming from the Philippine Foreign Service, I had this deep resolve that in everything that I do, I have to sell country. I have to tell the story of the Philippines because I've been to situations really when I was serving as a diplomat na baliwala ang ating katayuan. Naranasan ko yung experience na kami ng aking ambassador pinaghihintay sa corridor sa foreign ministry while the other more powerful countries, bigger countries, are dire-diretso na silang pumasok doon sa mga kwarto ng mga opisyal nilang dapat kitain. So, one of the best projects that we did, and for me, I'm extremely proud of that, is a major project that we, at a certain point in time, about 10 years ago, the BPO industry came to us and say, how can you help us compete with India, for example? No? Kasi nauunahan na tayo ng India. Kasi ang nangyayari, pag narinig na, okay, yung call center nasa Pilipinas, magagaling yung mga tao, pero pag nalaman nila na nasa Pilipinas pala, nagpupunta na sila sa India. So we did a major research, and what we did at that time is based on this global research that we came up with. We created messages. We created a unified story on how we will be able to tell Filipino ingenuity and yet put forward the image of the country. And for me, that is what you call soft power. You have heard about Hallyu, di ba? The Korean telenovela, the Korean wave. You've heard about the manga, hindi ba, of Japan. So, how can you now use Philippine soft power to be able to push the image of country forward? Okay. Now, the next is, lagi sinasabi nga ni Congressman Toff, kinakailangan meron tayong kwento. Pero saan natin huhugutin ang kwento? Ang kwento ay nasa sa atin, di ba? Ang kwento ay nasa kwento ng Pinoy. I always say that the DNA of the Philippine brand is the Filipino people. We are caring, we are creative, we are colorful, and we are collaborative. We ourselves is the Philippine brand. Okay. Now, what is nation branding? So how do we wield this soft power? Put all of these collective, these stories, these unified stories together, and we will be able to do this through nation branding. So isipin nyo na lang, di ba? Pag sinabi France, made in France, ano agad ang nasa isip natin? Pagkain, good food, French fashion, French perfume. If we talk about made in Italy, you think about the best in leather goods. If you think about Switzerland, you already think of a Swiss precision, so iniisip mo na agad Rolex watches, hindi ba? Now, it's also the same as when you brand a particular product. You think of Tesla, for example. Now, Tesla is an example of sustainability. You think about Apple, it's an example of innovation. So, how can we create made in the Philippines to be our global signature? A global signature that connotes trust, quality, and our creative genius. So how do we reflect all of that? Now, first, there is a way to measure the country brand. Now, how are we going to win this perception game? And then Simon Anholt, the guru of nation branding, and who has just become our branding partner here in the Philippines, is that he created 6 pillars or 6 parameters on how we can measure our country brand. Number 1 is exports. The question that you ask, are our goods and services seen as innovative and top quality? Governance, ang leadership ba natin, do they inspire trust for investors and partners? Culture and heritage, ang arts ba natin, music and tradition, do they spark global curiosity? Or how unique is our culture and heritage? People, are we admired for our warmth, our talent, and resilience? And tourism, do they captivate? the tourists who come to us, and do we convert them as brand ambassadors when they leave the country? And investment and immigration, are we attracting the correct investment pagpasok dito sa Pilipinas? And immigration, ito ba mga expats na dumadating sa Pilipinas? Is the Philippines a safe place to be where they can raise members of their family? So all of these are being considered. And there is an index na ginagawa. So if made in the Philippines can now stand for high quality and trust, ibig sabihin, mas madali na kayong magbenta ng inyong mga produkto. If you are going to export your product, if you say we have high quality exports, it's easier for you now to sell your digital art, your handcrafted furnitures abroad. And a strong cultural heritage, ito na nga yung sinasabi ni Congressman Toff, you have to be hyper-local. A strong heritage, culture and heritage profile gives your creations, whether it is clothing, film, or culinary arts, a one-of-a-kind appeal. For tourism, the tourism brings people here to experience our story, and then do we make them as our brand ambassadors abroad? Pero, lagi nating sinasabi, so you want Philippine products to be trustworthy. Now, we conducted a study called the Philippine Trust Study. Anong sinasabi sa ng studying ito about products? Kinakailangan yung mga produkto natin should be known to be known, good, and consistent so that it can earn long-term support. And what are the drivers of trust in the products? Next slide, please. It has to be product and service quality. Familiarity. So, ibig sabihin, dapat nakikita ng mga tao yung mga produkto natin sa mga tindahan. Reputation as a good employer. Kinakailangan hindi kayo nag-employ ng child labor. And then sustainability and contribution to a larger society. So lagi kasi di ba naririnig natin ngayon yung ESG measurements. That one is very important kasi tinitingnan yon when we export our products abroad. Now, next slide please. In our soft power report that we did together with the Department of Foreign Affairs, we identified key national strengths, meaning this is the secret sauce of the Philippine soft power. We identified hospitality, festivals, warmth, and kapwa. So you see, now, how can you profit from these characteristics? Kinakailangan yung mga produkto natin should be able to tell stories that will reflect the Philippine hospitality, that will reflect the color of our festivals, and that will reflect the warmth of our people and our bayanihan spirit. Because at everything that you do, we have to show Filipino identity through creativity. Now, so how do you, as MSMEs, leverage on our soft power? One, showcase Filipino identity through your creativity. I wore this barong. This barong was created by a young fashion designer who graduated from St. Benilde. What he did is that he used digital art. The colors are very Basquiat, the designs. And then he used sustainable fabric. This is silk cocoon, diba? Now he is exporting this. He is now participating in international trade fairs in Japan and in ASEAN. So you see, isang barong, maraming kwentong sinasabi. Now, when I wear this outside the Philippines, I don't say that this is done by a particular designer. I always say, this is done by Filipino creativity and this is made in the Philippines. So this is really the collective story. Kaya di ba, ang mga tao always curious kung ano ang mga ikinukwento natin. Istorya ng ating mga ginagawa. Pero lagi natin i-link yun at i-connect sa ating bansa. And that one is very important. Second advice is, collaborate to multiply your impact. Like ito yung sinasabi din kanina na you have to join groups, no? Kinakailangan magkaroon kayo ng mga collab, di ba? Usong-uso na ngayon yung mga collab na ngayon. And then President K of the CCP mentioned earlier, meron na kaming animation. Ang ginawa namin kasi, the CCP published the Encyclopedia of Philippine Art. Ito yung tinatawag naming EPA. So everything is there. All the different art forms are there. All the researches are there. And then what we did is that, like for example, for animators, kinuha namin, we had this animation grant, and then we told them, mag-research kayo, gamitin nyo yung EPA. So ang ginawa nila, they created yung mga, kinuha nila yung mga mythical Filipino characters at yun ang ginawa nilang characters sa games. And as a result, yung mga games na yon are now award-winning and they have millions of downloads. So, biruin nyo, the use of very authentic, something from our culture, pinagkakakitaan na ngayon. And then animation, ginawa namin mga kwento ni Lola Basyang. So there is an educational aspect of it, pagkatapos may pera ka pa for the animation. So you have to really collaborate and multiply your impact. And then you have to be vocal ambassadors of Filipino ingenuity. Huwag tayong mahihiya na ikwento natin ang ating mga successes and also our challenges. At ipakita natin na at huwag tayong matatakot na ang produkto natin ay hindi sasabihing world class. You know, kinakailangang isipin natin na kaya natin yan. And we have to claim this. No? Now, how do we make it all gel together? And how can we make it come alive? My proposal, and this I had been singing for the last 20 years, is we need to create a national branding council or a national branding steering committee. Because kinakailangan may conductor ng orchestra, hindi ba? So it has to be a joint public and private sector collaboration. In the case of the, how Korea was able to push its soft power, it was because they had a very unified national branding council that is heavily funded both by government and by the private sector. Kasi ang ginawa nila, yung mga produkto, like for example, Samsung, the major Korean brands, what they did was they funded all the creatives and then they used them as brand ambassadors for their particular brand. So, tumaas ngayon ang kanilang sales, no? So, now, every hero has a pivotal moment, a call to action. This is yours. As creative entrepreneurs, whether in film, music, design, publishing, heritage, and technology, you have the power to carry the Filipino narrative forward. When you stand tall and share your unique Filipino tale, our entire nation rises alongside you. I've called this talk, Made in the Philippines, How Country Branding Will Boost Your Business, because it's a promise. When our global story is strong, all creative enterprises thrive. Let's make Made in the Philippines synonymous with innovation, heartfelt authenticity, and world-class talent. Mabuhay ang Pilipino negosyante, mabuhay ang Pilipinas, maraming salamat po, and let us show the world who we are.
Big round of applause, of course. Junie, please stay on stage. We want to have you in the center. Want to make sure everybody sees you. Can you take this space for you as well? So we have you, of course, here. Now, we actually had a question from the audience before you have your traditional photo op. Thank you, of course, so much for your insights and your inspiration. There is one prevailing question that stand out from a lot of people in the audience is, how do you encourage local brands to go globally, whether it's a small, medium business enterprise, when their thinking is, I'm just local or I'm too local? How do you encourage them to grow?
Well, this is really where the innovation will come in. And this is really where the uniqueness of your product will come in. I'm talking about this barong. And Kelvin Morales is not unique. You have a lot of creators who are here that's using something that is very local, a local ingenuity. So, you have to have a certain set of criteria and parameters in your head so that you will be able to benchmark your product, whether it is only good for the local market or this is something that will be good for an international market. If you find that you have the secret sauce, and I've been talking about, really all the Filipino ingenuity, the creativity, using local fabrics, using a local story, if you have all of the secret sauces that I've shared with you today, then your product can go global. But then partnerships, is also very important. Collaboration is also very important. Ang dami ng mga nagko-collab ng mga local brands, and bakit hindi tayo makapag-collab with an international brand, Like for example, who is this shoemaker, Malin? Who is this shoemaker that collaborated with the Great Women brand here? Lubotang, di ba? Christian Lubotang. He collaborated with the Great Women brand here, and then they used all Philippine designs in selling a bag. So just imagine a bag that you can find in Quiapo, that you can find it and be sold for 300 pesos, is being sold in the international market for $1,500 US. So just imagine that. So, but it's just really a matter of us exposing, and this is really the role of creating made in the Philippines as something that is really unique. So we have to strengthen our national brand.
I like how you're ending strong. A round of applause, of course. Junie, thank you so much. Can we have you in the center? Everybody wants to take your photo, take your videos as well. He's still in the audience. I'm nominating him if you have any questions. He's seated somewhere in front.